All right, everybody, I think we'll get going. Can you hear me in the back? All right. So thank you very much for coming tonight. It's really, I think Mr. Lehan wins the pool because we broke 20. So congratulations. We're very excited to see a lot of people here interested and excited about this project for one reason or another. So we have about 25 slides for you, going through the project, going through the history, talking about the financials, talking about the proposed layouts of the buildings, and then we want to leave time for question and answers because I think that's when we'll really get to the information that you're looking for. I wanted to introduce a few people. I'm Jack Hathaway, the Town Administrator. We have Jim Lehan, who is our Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Scott Bugby and Jeff Palumbo, who are members of the Board of Selectmen. George Cronin is Chairman of the Public Safety Building Committee. We have Mr. Judici in the back, who's on the member of the committee as well. Obviously, we have a lot of firefighters and police officers, and we have Chief Stone and Chief Bushnell over in the corner. And there's Gail Bernardo, former town clerk. Thank you for coming, Gail. I also want to recognize Bill Kelly, our former chief, retired chief. Thank you very much for coming, Chief. So I will turn it over to George Cronin, who will kick it off for us. Thank you very much again for coming.
Okay, I'll be brief. As Jack said, I'm George Cronin, Chairman of the committee. I think it was about 4 years ago they formed this committee, or at least they were looking for volunteers, and knowing the condition of the building, I decided to volunteer. Now, I didn't volunteer because I had nothing to do, and this was going to, take up my time. Believe me, I have a lot of better things to do, but this is an important project, and that's why I volunteered. That building down there is very antiquated. It's totally out of date. Now, when you think about it, that building was built, the main building was built approximately 50 years ago, a little more than that. And since that time, we have put 2 additions on the Freeman-Centennial School. Well, it was the center school at the time. I think I was in 6th grade when they put the first one on. We've since ripped down that entire building and put up a new building, and we've also added another school. We've built the King Philip Middle School. We've put an addition on the King Philip Middle School. We've put 2 additions on the high school. We've built a new town hall, a new highway department, new highway garage. And why do we do all this? In the library. Because we had outgrown all the other facilities. In the meantime, I think we've done 1 meager addition on the police and fire station. It's out of date, folks. When that building was first built, as I said, I think I was in 6th grade. I think we had like 6 police officers. We had no full-time firefighters, no full-time chief. Everything was volunteer. What was a computer? No such thing. It's time to upgrade. It's not big enough, and what is there is totally out of date inside. Now, another reason I volunteered, I don't want the Taj Mahal. My family's been part of Norfolk for over 100 years, and I've been here for 63. And quite frankly, I plan to stay here the rest of my life. My next move will be down on Seacon Street. But I'm hoping that's not for a long while. So I also have a grandson down at the HLF Day School, and I have another daughter that's a homeowner, so they're taxpayers also. So what we're looking for, at least what I was looking for, and I think we've achieved it, is a long-term solution at the lowest possible cost. And they'll get into it later, but when you look at what we're building, or we're proposed to build, is a lot cheaper than very similar projects in towns that are surrounding us that are going on right now. I mean, it's almost like 1/3 less than they're paying. And part of that is we lucked out with this regional communications center. Now that's, we've entered into an agreement with Rentham, Plainville, and Franklin, and we're going to combine all 3 towns into one communication center, and there's going to be a state grant that's going to pay for the communication equipment, approximately $3.5 million. Now, originally that was going to go to Rentham. The whole center was going to be located in Rentham, but apparently that was deemed that their building wasn't big enough to house this facility. Now, this new building that we've purchased down on Sharon Ave is big enough, but we have to renovate that building to accommodate this, and that's going to be part of the plan to make that entire building part of the whole police department. And once that's done, we can move the police out of the current facility, and so we don't have to relocate anybody. And now we can put a 2-bay addition on the current fire station, along with another small addition for accommodations for the firefighters who now sleep out in a trailer on the back of the police station. That'll be gone. So we save a lot of costs because we don't have to relocate anybody. We save a lot of costs because we have this regional communication center. Also, we will be charging rent to the other 3 towns to use our building. There's no agreement set yet, but you're probably looking at approximately $50,000 a year coming to the town of Norfolk for them using our building. Now, it makes sense, we have to provide this area if we hire the same contractor to renovate the entire building, and we've already hired the same architect, to renovate the entire building and do it at once, because you're going to keep the cost way down. If you just renovate the one area and then go out to bid 2, 3, 4, whatever years you want down the road, you're going to find the cost is going to escalate tremendously. And if for some reason we can't come together and renovate this building for the Regional Communication Center, we might possibly lose this grant. And we certainly don't want to do that. And if you look at interest rates, they're starting to go up. And that's going to also add cost down the road if the interest rates keep going up. So to me, it's critical to get this job done right now, because I think you're not going to find it any cheaper, and you're not going to get a better long-term solution than we're looking at right now. So I'm going to turn this over to Scott Bugby.
Thank you, George. I assume everyone can hear me. Jack, I'm just going to do a brief overview of the background, but also I think the chief's, as George was saying, seeing is believing. If you haven't been to the police and fire station, I think they're willing to give people tours. As you can see the kind of conditions they operate under, which is amazing and frightening at the same time. As you might not know or remember, back in May of 2014, the folks in town voted to approve to acquire the 14 Sharon Ave property for approximately $1.1 million, and to borrow $1.8 million for site acquisition, architectural and engineering costs to do site work as deemed appropriate. And then if we fast forward to December of this year, last year, 2015, at a special town meeting, the town voted to approve authorizing the Board of Selectmen to borrow $12.2 million to complete the construction of the police station, which is 14 Sharon Ave, and to renovate the fire station on Main Street, contingent, of course, on a successful debt exclusion this January 19, 2016. So update of what we appropriated so far, $1.8 million, spent to date roughly $1.1 million, and remaining is about $645,000 for an estimated total project cost of roughly $14 million. And I think, Jack, who's good next?
Thanks.
Thank you.
I want to just encourage you, too, if you have any questions while I'm going here, I have a few slides to go through, but if you have any questions while I'm talking, please interrupt me. We have a microphone up here for questions. So we want to talk a little bit about the difference between 2009 and 2014. 2009 was the last time we went to the ballot to ask for funds for this project, and back then we were looking at tearing down the entire public safety building that exists on Main Street, and then relocating those departments for probably about a year, and then building one new facility that they would share, and we would have the dispatch center that would just affect Norfolk within that building. That was a 27,000 square foot building. Project cost was estimated to be $10,475,000. We had a budget for $1 million for a relocation cost. DPW was probably going to go over to the fire department was going to go over to the DPW and house those house over there, and then the police department was going to try and move in and be comfy with me at Town Hall down on the first floor. It would have been difficult, to say the least, but that was the plan. If we adjust that for inflation, just using a 3% escalation, we'd get to about $13.7 million in today's cost. If you use 5%, we're at $15.3 million. But The project we're looking at today is 41,000 square feet, and I'll get into that a little bit in a minute. As we have said, it's a $14 million project. That includes the $1.1 million we've already spent on acquiring the Sharon Ave property. And as George said, we'll have somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 of annual income. We're negotiating that with the Board of Directors of the Regional Dispatch Center, which is the 4 town administrators. I step out of that negotiation when that happens, but that's ongoing, and I think that's a very conservative number that we expect to receive. What the 41,000 square feet is in today's project is 16,298 square feet of a police department, down on Sharon Ave, 16,600 feet of a fire department here on Main Street where the current public safety building is. And we're really leaving that existing building and then adding on to it on the right towards the Federated Church. We're adding on 3 bays and adding some area for medical, where the paramedics would work, and also, as we said, bunks where the guys would be rather than out in the trailer. Down on Sharon Ave, we'd have 5,400 square feet for the Metacomet Regional Dispatch Center. Again, that's the dispatchers that you call when you call 911. So we'd have all 4 towns responding out of that location, and then they'd be able to dispatch police and fire from that location in any of the 4 towns. Additionally, at the Sharon Ave, we'd have a shared training space of 2,600 square feet. That's going to be a meeting room similar to this, where we could have training for the police officers, we could have roll call, we could also, Metacomet is interested in using it for training dispatchers. We could also, rent that out to the other towns if they want to have functions there. And that would be an ad alternative when we go out to bid, so that's, kind of the lower on our needs assessment, but something that we think is important, but we would only get it if the bids came in appropriately. And then we'd also have 3,400 square feet of empty space that we could use for future growth, whether it's in the police department or in Metacomet. We've had some other towns, not directly, I should say informally, ask us if they'll take on more people in the Metacomet Dispatch Center. So Walpole's interested, Foxborough has expressed some interest. Again, as I said, just informally, but we would certainly look to add more towns in the future. The key differences, and when I looked at this, I looked at going from 27,000 to 41,000 square feet, so I figured other people would have questions. What we're adding, the difference between 2009 and 2016 is we now have garage space for the police. That was something that we weren't able to include in the original project, but the metal kind of prefab building that we have down at Sharon Ave gives us enough room to have garage space, so we can get probably 8 police cars in there on a kind of day-to-day basis, and then if we had a storm event, we could really pack them in and get pretty much the whole force in there if we had to. We have additional garage space for the fire department because, as I said, we'll have the new bays on the right of the building at Main Street, which will be big enough to house today's equipment. We'll have all the equipment that's needed to keep the ambulance in shape and ready to respond on a as-needed basis. We'll also retain the old bays on the left-hand side for the smaller vehicles that we have in the fleet. Obviously, Metacomet wasn't in the first plan 5, 6, 7 years ago. We didn't have any space for future expansion, and we didn't have the training space. So all positive things, I think, that are in this project that we weren't able to get into the last project. Now, a couple slides just showing you what the projects are. And what we've done to this point with the architect and the engineers is just have some floor plans laid out. We've done some kind of the architect's level of estimating costs. We haven't gone out to the cost estimators to come up with true cost. Obviously, if we're approved, we'll finish that project, and then very quickly we'll go out to bid and we'll get the real cost from the contractors that are interested in the project. This is, and actually I was going to, George, if you could hit that silver switch maybe behind you. I hope so. Yeah. Is that better? And this, I put this presentation out on virtualnorfolk.org. If you go to the main page, right in the news section, the top item is this presentation, so if you want to see it later. This is down on Sharon Ave. It's the Shire Park Commercial Center. It's right behind Provo's and kind of the new Dunkin' Donuts, that road that connects there. This is the existing building that's there today, and so that's what we would turn into the Norfolk Police Department and the Metacomet Regional Facility. This is all driveway space, and then hopefully some spaces over here for the officers to park. I know you can't see this, but this is the floor plan for the police department. This is the first floor of that building. You have garage space down here on the far end. So as you know, they'd come around the building and circle in here. They'd also have an opening here. As I said, we could park vehicles in here during the day, and if we had to, we could fit more vehicles in. We have the Sally bays where the police officers drive into when they have a prisoner. And then we have the whole booking area, offices, we have locker rooms. In today's world, we don't have locker rooms for the female officers. We have 2 full-time female officers today, and we have them changing in the closet. So we actually have male and female locker rooms. We have offices. We have a conference room for the officers. When we go to the second floor, this is all just a open space above the garages, so there's no room there. This is all the Metacomet Regional Communication Center. This is the room I talked about for future expansion, and then this is the training room where we could have kind of a classroom type environment. We'd use it for classroom. We could use it for roll call type events, big meetings. Certainly if we had a major event, a storm event, and we had this could be a regional center for public safety officials to meet. The fire department, this right here, just this part of the building is the current facility. What we would add on is these bays and some offices in the middle here. So again, this is the old structure. This is the new bays. This is all area here where we would really have kind of clean space for the ambulance to store medicines, for the officers to come in after having an event. And I didn't appreciate before coming here what these guys go through. But when they come in from dealing with somebody with a traumatic medical event, and when they have to get cleaned up, they need the right space. They can't just jump into the shower. They need to go get into a space, or they go through, obviously a burn type event. They need to get cleaned up, and both their equipment and themselves get cleaned up. Oops, sorry. We also have, and then this other new space is an office, and then the bunk areas, the areas that we would take out from where we have the trailer on the back today. The rest of the building we would do some cleanup to, but we wouldn't do any major structural changes to. So the next steps, and I know I'm going very fast, and again, I ask you if you have questions, please don't be afraid to interrupt. But the next step, we're excluding $12.2 million. And people have told me that this gets confusing, and even I talked myself through it a bunch of times. But what we're trying to do, it's a $14 million project. We've already borrowed $1.8 million, which we've spent the $1.1 million for. We've authorization from town meeting to borrow another $12.2 million, but it's contingent on this vote on January 19th. What the selectmen have agreed to do is exclude the $12.2 million from Proposition 2.5. So that's the part of the project that will be in addition to your taxes. The $1.8 million, we believe we can cover in the general fund budget. We believe there's going to be a surplus in the Freeman-Kennedy project, which will cover part of that project. And then we're going to dedicate the rent from the Metacomet Regional Communication Center to cover the rest of that 10. So we're looking at, again, we're looking at to exclude the $12.2 million. And yes, ma'am.
I ask a question. The debt
Ooh, only if you speak at the microphone. And this fire department will service, and police station will service Pondville.
Yeah, I know. My question is, a debt exclusion is actually better than a Prop 2.5 override, because a Prop 2.5 stays there once it goes up.
Absolutely.
An exclusion is
Yep.
for that, for the time. I went through this in Sudbury for years, and we made sure that we got the public educated as to the difference between a Prop 2.5 override and a debt exclusion. So that's that.
That's a great question, or a great statement, really, and I thank you. So just to restate that and kind of give you some background, a Prop 2.5 override, which we had back in 2005, that's the last time we've had one, that's an increase to your permanent increases to your taxes. So, back then, we asked for $1.1 million to add it to the operating budgets of the town. What a debt exclusion is just adding it to the tax rate just while you're paying off that debt. So when we calculate and I'll show you that later, when we're paying off, when we calculate the tax rate every year, we look at the debt that is related to those projects that we've excluded from Proposition 2.5, and we add those on to the tax rate at the very end of the process. So this would be, and we're limited to borrowing for 20 years on any municipal projects. So this would be a 20-year increase. I'll cut to the chase. It's a 61 cent increase to the tax rate. And then that would decrease every year, because the way that municipal bonds work, you pay a level principal every year, and then obviously the interest drops down because you're paying off that principal. It's different than a mortgage, but so it'll start with 61 cents and then would drop 1 to 2 cents per year until it disappears after 20 years. Jim, I think you were going to talk about
I just want to say thank you also for everybody coming tonight. We really do appreciate it. And just before, I like numbers, so if I go beyond what I should go, please stop me or correct me or ask questions, because I have this thing about numbers. I like them. But just in way of background, Jack mentioned that we had a 2.5 override for operational costs in 2005. Under Massachusetts law, every community raises its tax levy by 2.5% every year. We're limited to that 2.5%. We have not asked for, nor have we needed, a dime more than that 2.5% since 2005. So our operational budget has stayed within the tax levy for the last 10 years. We have not spent a dime more. I know everyone focuses on the tax rate, and we're going to spend some time explaining that. Hopefully, it'll help people understand how that works, because the tax rate is really very much a function of property values. And as you'll see when we go through the slides, property values in 2007 were actually higher than they are today in 2015. We still have not fully recovered in terms of the value of our property, and that has a dramatic impact on the tax rate. The lower your property value, the higher your tax rate, because the bucket of revenue remains constant. Every year that bucket goes up 2.5%. The shares that you pay are directly proportionate to the value of your property. So as your property increases in value, your share increases. If your property decreases in value, your share decreases in value, or decreases in cost. But we'll try and go through that. Thank you for that question, Betsy, because the excluded debt component...
Excuse me, before you go on, you push the two pieces of your mic closer together. See the bottom part and the top part? Just push it together a little bit better. Okay.
Is that good?
I hope so.
Mrs. Gleason is always very good about making sure we follow these rules. How's that? That better? Is it okay?
Go ahead.
Our excluded debt is made up of these 4 items, and these are the only items that are over and above the tax rate. The library, King Philip Junior High, King Philip Senior High, and the Freeman-Kennedy, which just went on to the tax rate. The number you see to the right, the 13 cents, the 13 cents, the 38 cents, and the 96 cents, those are that is the actual impact to the tax rate. So if you were to deduct the $1.59, if we had no excluded debt, our tax rate would be $1.59 less than it is today. Now that number will gradually go down every year, and you can see the date of expiration. The library comes off the books in '23, and the schools come off the books in '26. The next slide shows the same debt structure, but you notice the numbers different. King Philip refinanced their debt this year. They are at the halfway point, and they have municipal bonds, which they were able to refinance after 10 years, and they were able to get significantly lower interest rates, and that reflects in a substantial savings to us. In fact, it's $88,000 in real dollars that we no longer have to pay in interest because of their refinancing. So that has made a significant difference. The 61 cents that Jack mentioned is the bottom public safety component, and that, when added on to the tax rate, is $2.11 total for excluded debt. The number that really you need to look at is the change in impact. Because of the King Philip refinancing, the change in impact to the tax rate will be 52 cents on the dollar. Another way of saying that is if you own a $500,000 home, multiply that number times 5, roughly $262,000. $262, not 262,000. $262 would be the impact for a $500,000 home for the public safety facility. That would be that is the actual financial impact. This is the worst case scenario. And I say that in the sense, we have not finalized the detail of the buildings. We have initial plans for the buildings. Once we get the architect and everyone working on this project, our hope is that we will be able to bring that number down. But this is the number we should work with, because this is the worst case scenario. And if it ends up, we don't want to share something that isn't actually showing you what the potential worst case scenario is. Just as a quick aside, I do strongly encourage you to get out of the facilities. I haven't lived in town for 63 years like George, but I've lived here for 30, and 2 of my children have moved back. I have 7 grandchildren that live in this town, and I'll be joining George someday down on Seacon Street, but not in the same place. But one of the great privileges of serving this community has been to get to know the fire and the police in this town. We are, as you may know, ranked as one of the safest towns in the state of Massachusetts. In fact, we're ranked as one of the safest towns in the country. There's a reason for that. These guys are on the street 24/7. They patrol all of our streets all the time. You will not see that in any other community. I saw a note, Cole won't tell you this, but I saw a note today about 2 savings they had on heart attacks where they resuscitated a gentleman, I think, yesterday? Sunday morning.
4:30, 5:30.
Yeah.
First time
I don't know what price you put on saving a life, but prior to our getting the paramedic component into our community, which I think started in 2004, is when I think we first started. Am I right, Cole? 2005, okay. Southwood Hospital used to service our community, and they used to provide that paramedic service. Southwood, as you know, has long been closed. So we didn't have that capability. We initiated that capability. It came at a price. We've added staff. We've done a number of things. But the quality of service that our fire and police provide to this community is just off the charts. And we're very fortunate to have every one of them. And we're grateful for it. Because it's been, they don't stop me for speeding anymore, so it's even better. But no, it has been one of the great privileges in getting to know these guys and the work that they do and how much they care. You can't pay people to care about their community. You can't, and they care. I've seen it so many times firsthand, and I'm just proud as hell of you guys. Thank you all very much. You do a great service. This facility is for them. Midfield just approved a new public safety facility, $18 million project. It's under construction as you speak. Millis, new public safety facility. Mansfield, new public safety facility. Foxborough, Mansfield. What am I missing? Walpole, I think? No, I don't know Walpole. But
They're talking about it, yeah.
they're talking about, okay. Our facility is a disgrace for what these gentlemen do, an absolute disgrace. And the part that we worry about is that we have worked for 4 years, and Jack has been the mainstay of this. We have worked for 4 years to create this regional dispatch center. We talk about regionalization and getting, in Massachusetts' proprietary political climate, getting towns to work together is an effort of love. I mean, it's like pulling uphill. And this is the first breakthrough we've had. We've, as a town of Norfolk, we've been pursuing this in all aspects of our businesses and looking for ways to regionalize services and capabilities. This is the first breakthrough we've had. But it is very much dependent on our getting this facility up and running. And I'm not saying this is a scare tactic. I got accused in town meeting 4 years ago of mentioning 40Bs and being sure that we manage the process. We have 3 of them before us right now. 3. They're here, they're real, and we knew they were coming. If we don't get this facility, we could lose the rent. And we'll be right back to where we were. And 4 years of work would have been phenomenal. And we'll start over. We'll keep at it. We'll try and do it again. We'll try and find another location. We'll go to Plan B, whatever that is, and we'll keep at it. But this facility is desperately needed. In 1987, I was on the building committee for the H. Olive Day School. Mr. Cronin was on the same committee. We seemed to float together. That's why we're going to CCOM together. We proposed a school over here where the Freeman-Kennedy was just built. We had a plan to build a brand new school there. One building that would house all of our children. George will remember that. The price of that school was $11.7 million, 1987. 3 times we went to town meeting and were successful in getting that passed. 3 times it failed at the ballot. All 3 times. And I understand why. I understand why people don't vote for tax increases. Believe me, I live here too. I understand. We ended up settling on building the H. Olive Day School. We knew we needed 25 classrooms. We built 18. Then we added the additional classrooms at an additional $7 million to get to the 25. That wasn't big enough to house all of our student population, and we have fewer students today than we did in 1987. We had a higher enrollment of students in our schools in 87 than we do today. And we just spent $30 million on this school. So add it all up, we spent $40 million of our tax dollars, actually a little more, but $40 million of our tax dollars that we could have had for $12 million. That is all factual. That's what I hope we don't do here, because we have to do something. If it isn't now, we'll be back, somebody will be back in 2 or 3 years asking you to do this again, and it won't be $14 million. It will not. So I hope we can support this. I know the strain on people and taxes. I know, believe me, I understand it. I respect everybody's vote, irrelevant of what it is, but the need is very, very, very real. And this is the best solution we've seen. We got lucky. Regional dispatch wasn't on the horizon in 2009. But we didn't, it wasn't even a dream of ours. And as a result of that effort, and as I say, mostly by Jack and his counterparts in the other 3 towns, this has offered us an opportunity to leverage a situation where we can get something done at a lower cost than we ever thought we could. So we got lucky by mistake, not by forethought. We got lucky by mistake. So I hope you will support this. We appreciate you being here tonight very much. We're gonna let us talk to. Why don't you share with a little bit about the tax rates? And I think Jack and I are going to kind of tag team this, so help them understand.
All right. So, and a lot of people ask about the tax rate, so I wanted, while we had a good group here, I want to take just 5 minutes to talk about it. This is something that, and I was negligent in not introducing Cheryl Kelly is here, Chief Kelly's wife. Cheryl is the treasurer for the town, treasurer and collector, and she's very much a part of this process as well.
I'm having a little bit of sound problem.
I'm going to keep.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Use the center.
Would the other
Yeah, you want me to use the center mic?
Would the other mic make a difference?
What?
Would this make a difference?
I'm not sure which one it is. It's coming, it's constantly
Oops.
on and off, on and off. I don't know if it's the head.
This is beyond my engineering capability. I'll only break it.
All right, I apologize. Can we take that?
Yeah. I'm not sure where to get out of it.
Well, while Jack is trying to fix that, I can address a couple of comments that we've seen on Facebook and a couple of other situations. People have asked, what is the risk of not having a centralized police department? I don't know whether it's working or not.
Wait a minute, I can't do that.
We believe strongly that the fire department needs, and I think the chief can speak eloquently to this, but the fire department needs to be centrally located so they can reach all parts of town as best they can in the least amount of time. The police do not have to have that capability. They are on the road 24/7. Their response time is from a roaming cruiser who isn't from a station. There are very few officers in that station other than during shift changes. Is that fair to say, Chief? That's the only time they're really in the building. Other times they are all on the road. So where they're physically located isn't a concern. We do plan on having, if this is all approved, there will be a safe zone in this building so that if for whatever reason someone was at risk or at danger, there'll be what's known as a lock room. I may be using the wrong term, but they'll have the capability of going to that building, which is in the center of town, and getting into a safe area where someone, they can be buzzed in by dispatch, where they'll be safe and an officer can get to them if they need to get to them. So we've taken that piece into account, but the need to be centralized isn't the same for police as it is for fire. And I'm sure if you have any questions on that, the chief can elaborate more eloquently than I can.
All right. Well, I will try and go quick now. So just to calculate tax revenue, really we take the levy every year. It's the levy limit. And that's by Proposition 2.5, how much you can charge for, you can raise in revenue. We begin with the prior revenue, prior levy. We subtract the excluded debt service from the prior year that we paid. We add 2.5%. We add all the revenue that's associated with new growth. So if you build a new house, we know we're going to get additional revenue from that. That new growth is going to be figured into both the numerator and the denominator in the math project when you take the revenue divided by the assessed value. And then you add your new excluded debt service, which if you're not adding anything will be less than the prior year. So for FY16, what we did was we started with $27 million. We subtracted out what we paid the prior year, which was $2.24 million in debt service. We added 2.5%. We add the new growth for the year, and then we add the new debt service that's responsible for this year. The reason this year is higher than last year, just because we didn't add a new project this year, is because we were receiving, under the old SBA program, we were receiving reimbursement from the state for the H. Olive Day School. And we had finished paying off all that debt, and then we had a couple of years where we still received reimbursement from the state because they're so timely in their payments. So last year we kind of artificially had a low tax rate because we still received one more payment even though we didn't have any debt service. And then this year we didn't receive that $325,000 from the state. So that's our new levy for this year. So that's the numerator of the process. And then we calculate the assessed value of the town, and this is predominantly done by the assessing department. We begin with the prior year assessed value. That's all, every house, every taxable property in town, every commercial business. We adjust it for appreciation and depreciation based on sales from the last full calendar year. So when we do it, this past December, we're actually using sales from 2014. So there's a little bit of there's obviously a lag there. But that's the state rules. That's the dates that they want us to use. We add the value of the new growth, the property value, and then we make any adjustments that need to be done. So if somebody has a fire in their house, obviously their property goes down. It doesn't happen very often, but if a house gets torn down, we obviously take that off the tax rolls. So for this year, we start with $1.5 billion. We had $13 million of appreciation. We had $39 million of new growth. And that's our new value. That's if I'm not mistaken, that's an all-time high. That's 1.5, almost $1.6 billion. That's how much all the taxable property is worth in town. And then we just do the math. We take the current tax levy divided by the assessed value per $1,000 of value, and we get the new tax rate. So 28.7 million divided by 1.5 billion, which is then divided by 1,000, and we get $18.08. It's really simple as that. when we go through town meeting in the spring, we don't know all these numbers, but we obviously know what 2.5% growth is. We don't know what the new growth is, but we work with the assessors and the building department to estimate those numbers. So we construct a budget that we believe is going to fit within this levy limit. And that's really, if you want to be technical, that's when the tax rate is set, is when we're at town meeting and deciding what the budget is. And then for comparison, I've pulled some data from I think all of our abutters, and then some towns that I think are similar. Looking at, this is their residential makeup. So we are 92.7% residential property. We have a little less than 8% is commercial and industrial, and a lot of that is land, actually, undeveloped. You can look at Rentham at 74%, Foxborough at 73%. There's all the residential tax rates, and I say residential because some of them have split tax rates. We're at 1808. Foxborough is 14.82. Medfield 16.75. They're adding on, I think it's 50, almost 60 cents on their tax rate for their project. That hasn't hit that yet. And Medway 1811. Plainville 1483. They have a lot of commercial projects, but I think, as some of my friends on Facebook would say, do we want all that? There's obviously a happy medium, I think, between going with all the commercial that would get us to the Franklin-like property, and obviously we have a little commercial. We can try and help the residential taxpayers, but we certainly don't want to become Franklin. And then these are all their levies. You can see we're at 28.7 million, and we kind of fall in the middle of all those different all those different towns. And for those towns that have split rates, they have different commercial rate and then a residential rate. Foxborough at 1482, and then they charge their commercial property 1765. Plainville is 1483, and then they charge their commercial 1681. Rentham 1428, but their commercial is 1855. A few more, again, data points for you, just looking at our assessed value. So this is that's the 1.5 billion that we had in 2007, and what it's done over the past 10 years is, we saw the property values drop, obviously, until, well, at least 2012. Actually, we still continued to have depreciation here, but you got to remember that the new growth is going into that number too. So our total property values in town went from 1.5 billion, took a dip down to 1.4, and then now we're back up at 1.5, almost 1.6 billion. If I back out all the new growth, if we just looked at the properties that were here in 2007, they were worth 1.5 billion. Now they're worth 1.3 billion. And the reason I say that, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but the reason I talk about that is because that's, as we said, that's driving the tax rate up. It's not just happening for Norfolk, it's happening for other towns too, but it happens to the residential towns more dramatically. When we take that levy, the tax revenue, and we divide it by the value of the property, it'd be a much lower tax rate if those numbers were still up in that area. And again, I just want to, these are all on the town's website if you want to look at this again later. This is a really horrible slide. But it just shows you that how the tax rate changed each year and why it changed. The blue is the simplest part to look at, and that's the 2.5% growth to the levy every year and what that did to the tax rate every year. And that's bringing it up, in 2007 it was bringing it up 29 cents. In the middle it's 35 cents. This year it's bringing up the tax rate 39 cents. The red is what's being caused by when we have deflation, it's driving our tax rate up. So all those red numbers up here are driving our tax rate up. The ones below this line right here, that's when we've had a lot of appreciation, and we've actually driven the tax rate down from property value changes. Green is the debt. So that's the excluded debt that we've had. We drop off, in the good years, we drop off when we have changes and we've added projects. This is when we added the Freeman-Kennedy School. So that drove the tax rate up 80 cents that first year. And then the next year we finished borrowing for that project, and we raised it a little bit more by 10 cents. This is that anomaly kind of that I talked about with the SBA, because that gets figured into our debt. They were giving us $325,000 that was allowing us not to pay debt. Jim, this is a slide that you liked. I don't know if you want to.
Go ahead.
So, just for fun, Jim said, well, what would happen if we kept the tax levy the same every year, and how would our tax rate change based on this decreasing value of that property from 2007? So if we started with a tax rate back in 2007 at 12.15, because our property values have gone down, our tax rates jumped up to 14.60, and now it's fallen back down to 14.33, just because of the depreciation of our homes. So that's it. I think, thank you very much. I'm going to turn the lights back on, and we would love to have any questions that you have to set us with. Do we leave anything out that you want to talk about? Or you have any questions? Mr. Kelly, Chief Kelly, I should say.
I mean, there's certainly no question that public safety needs something. It's been going on for about 20 years. The only thing I'm worried about is, number one, the handouts that you gave out at town meeting. You cannot read what the rooms are specified as. The print is so small.
No.
And I don't know if you have anything that's larger where you could read and study it.
It hasn't gotten better yet, although I can
Okay.
send you electronic versions. And you
Okay.
can look at it.
The other thing is, 6 years ago, you said that the current building needed to be torn down completely, and now all of a sudden, it's okay. You might have to explain that. One more comment. Back in '85, we went through an addition. We did the police station and fire station addition, we did the library addition, the initial addition, and we did a water tank. That was all 3 projects. The day we moved into the police and fire station was outdated. We didn't do enough. We didn't look ahead. And I certainly hope that you are looking ahead at this point, because I've been through it, and it's not fun.
Thank you, sir. I think, well, let me start at the back, and then by then I'll have forgotten the first questions. But we are looking as much as we can to the future. I mean, that's a very challenging situation that we get into whenever we do these projects. Mike, Mr. Giudice, and I are on the school building committee for the Freeman-Centennial School. A couple of these gentlemen have been on a number of projects for the school projects in town, and we know that there are forces pushing you both directions when you're looking at these projects, and the impact on taxes being one, and everybody pounding on you really to keep the project at a minimum cost. But I appreciate your concern, and we've done what I think, as much as we can. When we've had the chiefs look at these projects, and we've had their departments look at the projects. We've tried to build out the facilities, with office space, with locker room space, with space for the equipment, particularly the bays. We've tried to build enough for the future as far as we can go. And then certainly that 3,400, I think, square feet of space that we have in the police station is hopefully going to give us some room to grow in the future as well, whether it be the Metacomet or the police department. As far as the current public safety building, and that's a question that comes up a lot. Why don't we just tear it down? And didn't we say that in the past? And I think, I guess I would rephrase that a little bit. I think when we were looking at that for a public safety building and trying to use the whole building with our current departments, we knew that we couldn't use that building. It wasn't satisfactory to hold all the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure, the manpower that we have in that building, and it would have been necessary if we were going to put both departments in there. I think we've come to a compromise here. We're going to use the old building, the existing building, for kind of the non-critical areas of the fire department, meeting rooms, kitchen types areas that aren't highly technical draws, if you will. And the new part of the facility is the part of the building, and the new bays are are obviously going to be new construction, and that'll house the really kind of the critical parts of that department. Obviously, the entire police department will be a new building. Thank you, guys. Did I miss one? I think I got the first and the last. Did I miss anything in the middle? You can just shout it out and I'll repeat it. All right.
And I meant to ask one more question. Out of the $12.5 million, what is the breakdown for the 3 projects?
It's 12.2, just 12.2 million. Oh. We don't have that. All I can tell you is it's $350 a square foot. We've gotten some rough estimates on the breakdown, but I don't have. We haven't gone that far with the architect and the engineer to tell you what the different the breakdown is for each project. For Metacomet, for the third, if you will, project, all we're doing is kind of preparing blank space for them. They're going to, and we're going to provide HVAC and power outlets. They're going to bring all the equipment, bring all, 90% of the cost, if you will. We're really just a landlord for them, and that's a small part of it. It's really, we're doing unfinished space for them. So that's not a big part of the project. Other questions? Hopefully for these guys.
If that goes away, it becomes a big part of the project for us.
For sure. Chief, maybe one other way to look at it is when we proposed that building for both departments, we knew we had to vacate the building. We couldn't do the construction without moving both police and fire out. So it became a demolition project as opposed to a renovation project. There's really no way to salvage it and get the additional space for both departments. When we were able to move the police out, which require more electronics, and with Metacomet in place now, we don't have to do dispatch, it becomes simpler to refit that building for a fire department, whereas it would be far more extensive to refit it for a police department. So that's what really made it work for us, is when we only had to centralize that building for the fire department. It now works. Yes, we need a new roof. Yes, we needed to make some changes and add some bays, but we don't have to do anywhere near the work that we would have had to do had we been housing both departments. Yes, Betsy.
Naturally, I talk. A friend of mine who, her husband is in business, and she was telling me that they talk quite a bit about storming and then forming, and I look at this as a process of the storming has been going on and now things are forming. I know that my family and I are totally in favor of this public safety building. Thinking of the word storm, it seems to me like, Mr. Kelly, it is a perfect storm. Jotting down some important points. The building on Sharon Ave is partially built, so it's renovation, not tearing down and building new. 3 renters, $50,000 to $60,000 annually rent. The interest rates are down now. I know they went up a gigantic 0.25%, but they're down. This building in the presentation, I can't remember the square footage, but it does include space for future growth. No relocation. Police are all around. Fire would be centrally located. I joke about, of course, in Pondville, that's great. And of course, the older I get, the more it means to me. Public safety, the minute a child comes into this world, they need it. And when those of us who are very aged are close to that part of our lives, we need it. And everybody needs it in between. If not now, when? There is no better time as far as I'm concerned. It's past town meeting many times. The 19th is the day that people really have to put their boots on the ground. I'm going to be there holding a sign. I pledged at town meeting that I would do my part, and my family will as well. I have my million points everywhere, but to me, it seems like the storm has been going on, and some good stuff has formed. I had my little tour at the police station in October, and as I humorously said, my little tour of the little police building. It's It needs to change, and I think now is the perfect storm and the perfect time. So I'll be there, and I just hope that people spread the word and that the yes votes, if we don't get them, we need them on the 19th. So polls open at 8, right? Or 7. 7. You could tell I always voted. One year I was the last voter in Washington.
That's right. So voting Freeman-Kennedy School on the 19th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Would you comment a little bit on, I kind of feel very strongly that what we have in our paramedic response is far above greater service than other towns around us have. Would you kind of expound on that a little bit?
I'd be happy to.
Why we do it better than other towns, and why we treat them worse, but say anything more about it?
I'll start with, I'll handle the first part, and then, and hopefully we will treat them better in the future. So we have advanced life support, as we've talked about, and we, as going back in history, we had Southwood Hospital that ran advanced life support from their facility in Norfolk, and then when they closed, they ran advanced life support out of ambulances out of Norwood, and so what that means is the basic life support ambulances that we would run in Norfolk, they're very limited in what they can do medically. And the short answer, and there are much better answers, but the short answer is they can help you with medicine that you have prescribed, and they can help you take that, but they can't introduce new medicines. The paramedics that we have on board, and we've had since 2005, they can, working with the doctors out of Norwood, they can, at your home, give you medicines that you need immediately. And obviously cardiac events are the ones that are the kind of the key events. There's many other important ones as well, allergies, et cetera, but the cardiac ones at least stick out in my mind. So there are a lot of towns around us that offer advanced life support, mostly on the south, Rentham, Foxborough, to the north of us, and Chief, correct me if you probably know off the top of your head, but a lot of the M towns do not offer advanced life support directly from their departments. Some of them have AMR or some other private services coming in, but they're not necessarily housing advanced life support in their town. So when there's a call, their basic life support will respond, and then if they deem it necessary, they'll call in an ambulance from that is going to come from out of town. Sometimes we respond up to the M towns, as we call them. Jack McFeely. Chief Bushnell refers to him very often as the godfather of ALS in town. He was selectman at the time and kind of drove us towards ALS, helped carry us over to ALS. Cardiac man, like myself, he'd had a heart attack, and he was in Millis, had a heart attack. They didn't have advanced life support. He passed away. So just tells ironic and sad and unfortunate. And so we won't lose ALS in this town. We'll keep it. So.
Do you have in your head any of the statistics of how many life and death situations have been?
I don't. Chief Bushnell would.
I know he's said it in the past.
Yeah, you saw the fire department leave. They responded. There was obviously some event going on. They're off to Norwood already. I don't. There are dozens and dozens and probably hundreds going back to 2005. There's just a couple this week. It happens at Pond Street at the athletic complex. It happens at the ice rink. It happens at homes all too often. Chief Bushnell, how are you? How many life-saving type events have you had?
To date, we're probably well over 2,000. The annual report for 2014 listed 1,724. During this past year, we probably certainly added another 300. So over a now 11th year of providing advanced life support to the community, we're well over 2,000 people. As I talked about earlier, Sunday morning at 4:30, and at 5:30, our medics responded to 2 incidents of cardiac arrests. Both of those patients were revived. I believe one patient will be released from the hospital later this week from Boston. The idea that, excuse me, I'm out of breath. We're on our way to a second alarm fire in Norwood right now. The idea of the advanced life support goes back to 2004 when the Board of Selectmen at that time brought me here from Connecticut. They sent me in with 2 missions. One mission was to get ALS up and running. Second mission was to bring a new building to the department. Right now I'm batting 50%. I could be in the Hall of Fame tomorrow based upon that. But that's not what it's all about. Some of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm glad I got a chance to get the mic away from Jack. One thing you can't lose sight of is the regional dispatch center. You just watched the Norfolk assignment run out of here to take Engine 2 to Norwood for the second alarm fire. We're going to the scene. We'll be working down there. They're at Old Derby Village. They got lines stretched on 3 floors, but I believe the fire's knocked down, so I return. Usually when we do that, I end up being part of command staff in that situation. If you had a chance to listen to how long it took to move 5 fire departments to Norwood, you could really appreciate why we need a regional dispatch center. The 4 towns going into the regional dispatch center will be Franklin, Rentham, and Plainville. We work intimately with Rentham and Franklin. Right now in the town of Norfolk, if someone was to dial and said their house is on fire, we divide the community at Main Street. Everything going to the west on Main Street is an engine responding from Rentham. Everything on the east side of Main Street is an additional engine coming from the town of Franklin. Franklin sends it with 5 firefighters on board. Rentham sends it with 4. We're with limited staffing. One of the things that we've talked about over the last few years is Jim endorses that we need more career staff. Problem is, tax base won't support it. We can't really bring on more more call staff because the cost of bringing them in the door is $5,000 out of the gate, and we don't have that kind of money either. So we're trying to operate at the level that we have. The only way we can sustain the service that you, the taxpayers, expect is to use mutual aid, automatic mutual aid, and the only way we're going to be able to make that work effectively is having a regional dispatch center. It's absolutely key. Talking about in terms of the fire station, I've had a lot of questions about how the building actually looked the way it is. And I'm glad Chief Kelly brought up the question, because one of the things that's been talked about is going back to the last time, 2008, we tried to move forward, was the building had to be raised. 2 big issues. At that time, we were not part of a regional dispatch. We were going to have to reconfigure that building for technology to accommodate a dispatch center. I would implore everyone here this evening, whether you're for the project, whether you're against the project, or you're not sure where you fit, stop at the station. We're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Stop anytime. I would enjoy having somebody show up at 2 o'clock in the morning, coming home from a night shift, and saying they want a turn. I will guarantee you, I will get up and I will be there to meet you. That's one reason. The second reason is, as Jack intimated, is that the building would be raised because there was no other way to configure it for fire apparatus. Those of you who have been to the building, and some of the faces here are very familiar, and you've been down to see what the building looks like, you can't get 5 pounds into a 2.5-pound bag. It won't work. You can try it at Roach Brothers Stop and Shop, excuse me, big wire Shaws, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't work with our fire apparatus. The building was built, as Chief Kelly indicated, it was a volunteer fire department way back in '66. The apparatus was much smaller. Environmentally, the apparatus was smaller because the emissions quality wasn't in place at that time. So those are the things that go in hand here. The most redeeming factor of the existing facility that's down there is a $70,000 mobile home located in the back of the property. We are trailer people at Norfolk Fire. And you can do jokes all night long, and I stand up isn't my thing, but anyway. The trailer's the most redeeming aspect of the property. That's where you house the firefighters that are out there. I hear it every now and then, well, you know, they're back there, they're sleeping or whatever. If anyone has had an opportunity to know people in the fire business or even stop by, you don't have a restful night's sleep. I've tried to sleep in the trailer. I've been a firefighter. I've been a backstep member. I've been in that situation. The fire officers are in there, don't sleep all night long because they have to listen to the radio. They have to make sure what's going around in the surrounding towns that they're ready to go, because if not, the fire chief gets very upset because they're not out the door quick, because he gets out the door quick. And that's one of the things you have to keep in the back of your mind. If you want paramedic service, that's one of the things that you're going to need. That's one of the things that we have to do in this environment. And believe me, excuse me, you get very good paramedic service. I come from Connecticut, worked in Guilford for a long period of time. We ran 4 ambulances, did close to 3,000 calls a year. And I can tell you, having come in from Connecticut, the types of people that you have working here, the types of people who have desired to come to Norfolk and work here to serve you, the taxpayers, is better than the people that I worked with in Guilford. There are people, we have people coming in from Swampscott fighting the traffic. We have another medic who comes in from Situate, Rhode Island. They're not here because we're paying them a lot of money. We're in union negotiations now. They don't make a lot of money for what they do here. But the reason they come, and Jim talked about it, is for whatever reason, they like it here and they like serving you, the people. Very few people out there raise problems for us. Anyone who's been critical of the operation knows that I call right away. There are a lot of people that have raised questions, and the first thing I try to do is reach out to them and say, come on down, let me buy you a cup of coffee, let me take you to lunch. At least come to the station, see what's going on, and if you want to be anti-public safety, that's fine, but at least give me a chance to do my dog and pony show. The police department. I spent 10 years in law enforcement before going into the fire service. And my 10 years in law enforcement taught me one thing. The way the police department operates here in your community, in our community, doesn't work. It just doesn't. You bring in someone from a domestic who's being detained. You bring him into the Sallyport area that's full of every type of weapon you could possibly find. You can't get the person out of the car without getting in a tussle, and if you get in a tussle, you fall over the oil tanks, and after you fall over the oil tanks, then you have to kind of waddle behind all these walls to get into the building. The cells, I'm there when the inspections go on with Deputy Chief Carroll. The inspections that go on the cells, my God, how we get away without being sued, I don't know. You know, it's just a credit to the people who work in it. The communications center, please. Take a look at the tape from 2008 on Norfolk Community TV. Please take a look at some of the pictures that are out there. It is incredibly bad. It is a liability issue. Something bad is going to happen there. And that's the thing we have to protect against. Ron Bain spends at least 1 hour every day in the building trying to fix things. We have circuits that keep going out. We have heat that doesn't work. We have air conditioning that doesn't work. The dispatch center in the months of July and August this past year, we had to open up the garage doors and bring fans in to keep air moving in the building. Why? The air conditioning system caught on fire twice during the summer. Minor fires, I keep telling them, don't put the fires out, let it burn, we'll get the building done. Nobody listens. Chief Stone found one of them, put it out himself. I said, Chuck, what the heck are you doing? So those are the things that go hand in hand. I know it's a tax issue. Believe me, I know it's a tax issue. I know it's a big deal. But we've done everything we possibly could do. In 2008, we were 15 votes short. In hindsight, in retrospect, probably the best thing that happened to us. Because at least at that point, if we had built the building and the way the economy was at that point, we would have had a great, beautiful facility with nobody in it. As it was, the police department lost a patrol officer. We cut back to bare bones in terms of firefighter response from off duty. But that's where we were. We're here again. We want to bring this across the finish line. If anybody doesn't believe me, and I think I've got some street cred with a lot of people in this community, the meetings that we've gone through in the construction process are not, gee, you know, I think George Cronin's a great guy, and I'm glad he sells oil and fixes everybody's oil burners in town. Or Jim Lehan, well, he was a great hockey coach at KP. Or Jack was much taller before I got here. But the bottom line, they were Donnybrooks. You know, they really were in terms of constricting the space. Is everything that Chuck wanted or I wanted in these buildings? Absolutely not. And one of the questions I get is, what's going to happen in the future? Are we going to have to come back? I can say from the fire department's perspective and the time that I will be spending with you here in Norfolk before I retire, it's there. We built the expansion in. You're not going to see a period of time where we're going to have more than 4 firefighters on a shift working there 24/7. We built it for 5. In the event of a storm, we can sleep a 5th person if we have to. As far as the police department goes, they have adequate expansion down there. We have adequate expansion for the regional dispatch center. I plead with you, I implore you, if nothing else tonight, at some point stop at the station. 24/7 we're there. I personally will bring the coffee. I will come out 24 hours a day to meet with anyone who takes the time to come down to see us. Thank you.
Chief, I can tell you why you didn't stay in law enforcement, but I'll tell you later. Thank you very much. Chief is the most eloquent speaker in the family here, if you will. So I thank him. And then Chief Stone is here, and I've asked him if he wanted some airtime here too, but he would like to defer to your questions. So if you have any questions, I'll give you one more shot here while we are on camera. Sir.
I just have a couple of questions. The first, with the project cost itself, $350 square foot. Jim, you had mentioned that the worst case scenario, which gives me a little bit of comfort. And my point is, I just wonder right now when the project goes out to bid, what if it costs more than what the estimate is right now? What's the contingency plan at that point? And then the second thing I also want to talk about, I just wanted an explanation of the mechanics of the financing itself. Because I think in the spirit of everybody's mind on taxes and savings, obviously there's going to be a construction component here. And I would just like to understand the mechanics of the financing. I would suspect that this is a bond issuance that's going to finance this. And because of this construction period and requisition draw over the construction period, I'm just wondering what the rate's going to be over there, if there's been any talks of forward starting swaps, et cetera, that might be able to save the town a little bit more money that way as well. So I'll...
We financed this project over 20 years. We're required to, by law, we can't finance it for a longer period than 20 years. It's similar to a car loan in many regards in terms of how it works. Every year it will come down over that period of time. In terms of the number, do we think it's a solid number? Yes, we do. If the project comes back at a higher number, we're going to have to cut things out. We're not going to go over what we showed you here this evening. That is a firm number for us. We think we can get below it, but we may not be able to get below it, but we will not go above it. So to answer that question. And the second question, in terms of financing, since 2007, our bond rating has gone up on 2 different occasions. That has helped us tremendously. The higher our bond rating, for a small town, we have a very, very good bond rating. We've been able to take our reserves from about $600,000, I think it was about 10 years ago. We've made 2 deposits in the last 10 years, or really in the last 2 years. We're about almost at $1.2 million now in reserves, and that all helps us in our bond rating. Short-term interest rates went up about 1/4 point. Has not impacted long-term rates at all, and probably even another 1/2 point to 3/4 point will have very little impact on long-term borrowing. So we're not worried about the next couple of years in terms of interest rates. Long-term rates don't reflect short-term rates. In fact, I've seen long-term rates come down when short-term rates have gone up. Now, if they go dramatically, if you see them jump 1%, 2%, 3%, which I don't think anyone anticipates, yes, then clearly we're going to have a higher interest rate environment, but I don't think anyone forecasts that. Especially with the stock market in the last 3 days, I don't think you're going to see that happen. So we're confident that it won't go over 12.2. We're on tape, we're on TV, it's not going over 12.2. We'll have to reduce things if we need to do that. We've built that conceptually into the project. Jack mentioned the $1 million, or roughly the $1 million we're getting back from the SBAB on the Freeman-Kennedy School. We made a commitment that we were not going to spend money gratuitously, if you will. If we could do the project for less money, we were going to return that to the taxpayers. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to get about $1 million back from that project that has not been spent, and we're going to devote that to this project, which in essence comes back to the taxpayer. So that's a firm number. Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Just if I can add one thing, just as far as estimating costs so far, we're working with our architect, and we also are required to have a project manager. And so they've both gone through the estimates so far. As we said, we'll then go to a cost estimator, which is our third cost estimate, and then go out to bid after that. So we are relatively confident with the numbers, and we're hoping that and we have a contingency built in, as Jim said. 10% contingency on most of the project. And again, it's a $14 million overall project. 1.1 million has already been spent on the building. And then, Cheryl Kelly, as I said, as our treasurer, is here. Obviously, when we go out to borrow, we'll work with our financial advisor and try and borrow the money as quickly as we can if we think that makes sense, or we'll do temporary borrowing, and then go out to long-term municipal bonds at the end if that makes more sense. Donna, you had a question?
It's more of a statement.
A statement, actually.
I'm Donna, and I've watched the video tour that was done in 2008. I'm creating another one. Most of the conditions are the same. We need to create new facilities. We need to pay for them. We have been patching the current building too long. Please vote yes on January 19th. The fire department, it's not properly climate controlled. Apparatus is right next to where they have to throw on their fire clothes, and you can't pull out the truck if somebody else is trying to put on a coat. It's too dangerous. The fire bays should hold the fire truck and the ambulances. A compressor is taking up some space on the floor. The compressor is not properly climate controlled. A ladder truck must fit completely in the station. For new engines, they have to have them modified to make them short enough to fit in our current small bays. And big truck trying to get out a small hole, luckily only once has a truck hit the structure. To have an engine and an ambulance in the same bay requires their bumpers overlap. Firefighters work a 24-hour shift. They have a trailer to sleep in and for training. To get from the trailer to the station, they walk across possibly an icy parking lot. Someone has been injured due to that ice. They need to do laundry, and they need a place to eat, and they shouldn't be in the same sink. Septic has been frequently pumped. Repairs have been done, but some problems still exist. Oxygen is stored where it is not up to legal standards. The building is not properly climate controlled. It is a 1966 building with a modification in 1985. Today's building is inadequate for current staffing levels and state standards. There are not enough bathrooms, and none of them are handicapped accessible. Need more working showers. Office space is too small for 5 people to work simultaneously. The planned renovations do not make the current building climate controlled. For the dispatch area, they need 2 people, 2 workstations for each person to function properly. Right now, only 1 can function properly, and they have to eat their meals right at the equipment. Dispatch needs to be climate controlled. The police station. One example, there's 1 room for training, computer stations for writing reports, meal breaks, and firearm storage and cleaning, all within 1 small room. Another room is being used for 3 or 4 functions. You have paper files, they're stored in all these little rooms. They need their own room. The building was not built to accommodate 18 officers. None of the building is climate controlled. As was mentioned, the Sally Port, it should be 1 function. It's got 4 right now. Our male, female, and juvenile cells are inadequate and below state standards. I'm very aware that we train our staff very well, and I know we've lost some of them to area towns. I wonder if that's because they're in poor working conditions. I just repeat that we need a new facility. We need to pay for it. Please vote yes. January 19th, Freeman-Kennedy School, cafeteria this year. 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you.
Other than that, the building's in great shape. Any other questions? Anybody? Thank you all very, very much for attending. We appreciate it. However you vote, we thank you for voting. That's the most important thing. So please vote.